So we moved up to Pomona Lake when I was, I think, 3 years old. And so I was born in '89. We moved to Pomona Lake in '92 when Wolf Creek Nuclear Power Plant moved their accounting in-house, and my dad was part of the accounting team. So we went from big city to out in the middle of nowhere on Pomona Lake, and it was awesome. You know, as we talked earlier, there were woods everywhere and animals and hunting and fishing and boating, and it was a really fun place to grow up. I was much more hyperactive than all the kids that were my age. I seemed to, you know, have way more energy than they had. I couldn't always understand why I felt the way I felt, which, I mean, it's most kids. But I noticed that I knew that there was something missing. I knew that there had to be more than this. I would say that all of the behavioral problems that I was having at school required something to happen. All my teachers, I think, were the ones who really asked my parents if we could explore attention deficit disorder options and medication, and we did, and it was a very difficult process. There were times that I would get out of control depressed, or I would be, you know, I couldn't get up, or I felt like a robot, you know, and just as I started approaching adolescence, like these problems became worse and worse. So I found that if I took multiple days worth of my medication all at the same time, I'd get really high. And then I go to college. Every weekend I'm drinking. I had experimented with you know, designer drugs while I was in high school. You know, I tried methamphetamine, and I tried cocaine, and I tried ecstasy, and you know, that run of things. But it was never around enough to become habitual. With cocaine or with methamphetamine or speed or whatever, the party wouldn't stop. Unfortunately, my grades really suffered, and I did not do well. I did not do well at Wichita State. So I moved home and transferred from Wichita State to Emporia State. Kind of the idea was, you know, graduate from college, go into the military, then do private practice, and then go into politics. Well, on my 21st birthday, I was arrested for DUI, and that was the first time I went to jail. So that dream kind of died right there that day. So I graduate, and then I took a job in Lawrence. I got heavily involved in playing pool up there. The drugs went from being experimental to this is something that I need this is something that I'm gonna do on a regular basis. And before I know, I am completely addicted. And then the drug eventually got to the point where I can afford my habit. Selling drugs seemed like a really viable option. I went from a point where I'm getting high and it's fun and I'm around other people to I'm getting high in the bathroom, locked in my apartment by myself because I don't want anybody to ruin my high. With methamphetamine and with opiates and other drugs and then alcohol on top of that, and you're looking at a recipe for a massive, massive train wreck. And that's exactly what happened. At several points in this period, right, between graduating college and going to prison, like people intervened. It was a really miserable cycle of getting everybody's hopes up. I'm sober, I've got a little bit of clean time, I relapse. And I talked to my parents, and I needed to get out. I needed to get away from home. I needed to go somewhere far away from all of this so I could separate myself from it and really heal and get better. I went to rehab in Florida, and it was incredible. And all of a sudden, I am moving at a completely different speed, and you know, my parents had spent ungodly amounts of money to try to get me sober. And I go to Florida to this rehab, and part of their program is that you go to AA meetings. And I walked into an AA meeting there, and I found everything that I had been looking for. I was offered a job by my sponsor in Florida, so I have to come home to go to court over a misdemeanor that I had waiting for me, and then I'm going to move back to Florida. Well, I get home and the U.S. Marshals are waiting for me. They arrest me for distribution of methamphetamine and everything else. I knew I was in big trouble. So within 2 weeks of being home, I relapsed. You know, I had come to a place in life where I believed that my life was over. And I did not want to go to prison, and I was a junkie, you know? And I had, you know, when I was in that world, like, I had couch surfed, I had been homeless, I'd lived in my car, I'd slept in the cold, I'd gone days without eating. I truly walked through hell. I truly walked through hell in my addiction. I'm thinking about how I want to kill myself on my way to the bar, and I'm thinking to myself, you know, I want to go to the bar, I want to have a couple cold beers, I want to shoot some pool, I want to get stoned, and then on the way home, I'm going to kill myself. So I get in my car, and I turn my stereo up, and I just kind of decide right then and there that this is it. And all my windows are rolled down, and I'm not wearing my seatbelt, and I'm coming up on a curve, and just let go of the steering wheel. So I go off the road, and I'm in excess of 100 miles an hour. I hit the embankment on the other side, and it catapults me into the air. And I go out, and I roll and go into a field. And everything stops moving. And I'm okay. What happened? You know, how am I okay? And I get down on my hands and knees, and I just cry out to the universe. You know, I don't know what is out there, but if there is something out there, please save me, because I want to die. I get the strangest, most eerie feeling, and that's when I experienced Christ for the very first time. And I hear the Lord tell me, everything's gonna be okay. And in that very moment, my life changed. And they take me to the hospital. And then from there, they transferred me to Stormont Vale West, which is the suicide unit. So I decide while I'm at Stormont Vale West that I want to live. So I made the decision, why not just turn myself in and start doing my time early while I'm waiting to be sentenced. So, enter the prison system. You know, you're expecting this really hard place full of hardened criminals and fights and violence, and don't get me wrong, like, there's plenty of that there. I noticed all these guys that were eating together and working out together and always, you know, praying together, and I started going to the prayer groups and the Bible studies, and my friend and my cellmates started walking me through the Bible. Prison was exactly what I needed. It was exactly where I needed to be. So I started in Leavenworth, and then I transferred to Forest City, Arkansas, because I qualified for the residential drug abuse program, drug and alcohol abuse program. And basically, if you completed their year-long program, you got a year off your sentence, and you were guaranteed 6 months of halfway house. So all in all, you got to go home 18 months early. I was down for that. My parents and my dog Pumpkin drive from Kansas to Forest City to pick me up, and I open the car door, and I get out of the car, and I shake my wife's hand. So Taylor was doing her internship there for her senior year at Washburn University here in Topeka. Once I'm out of the halfway house, this girl checks in on me, and she says, "Hey, Cantrell, how you doing? You still doing good?" And this was my moment. I told her how I felt about her, and that was it. We celebrate our 7th wedding anniversary in September. I had started working out at Ernest Spencer Metals. You know, everybody has a person in their life that gives them their stepping stone, and mine was Neil Spencer. He gave me an opportunity. He gave me a chance. People see that felony, and they think twice about putting you in a position of leadership or even hiring you. And he didn't look at my crime. He didn't look at my past. He looked at who I was person. Within 2 years of getting out of prison, like, I have this incredible job at an incredible company, and like, life is awesome. There was only one problem. My wife was going through her own struggles. Her mental health took a really sharp turn for the worse, and our relationship became really difficult. And we weren't going to church, and I wasn't going to church, and I wasn't going to meetings. And I don't remember exactly what the words were, but I basically told my wife, either I want to have kids or I want to have fun. And having fun to me was drinking. We start drinking together. Now I don't just want to do it with her, and on occasions, like, I want to go to the bar and I want to hang out with my friends. And as soon as I start going back to the bar, I start using drugs again. In my addiction, I blame Taylor for everything. I was in complete and total relapse, and I go to work early one morning after not sleeping. The owner was there first thing in the morning. Neil comes over to me and he's like, John, it's 5:50 in the morning and you smell like bourbon. I know you don't have any vacation, but I'm gonna give you a week off. You need to get some help. I knew that I needed to get back on the path. And what got us back together, Taylor ended up calling me and inviting me to go to church with her. And then we started going to church. And then she moved back into our house. And we got baptized together. And that was the path. We get to a point in our life where we're like, you know what? Now's the time. Let's be parents. We had the absolute best time during Taylor's pregnancy. We go and we check into the hospital, and we need to have an emergency C-section. And they pull my son out, and they hold up this big, beautiful 9.5-pound baby. I mean, he was a monster, just this huge, beautiful baby. And we only got to see him for a second, then they rushed off with him. He was stillborn. And he wasn't breathing, and he had no heartbeat. And I get down on my hands and knees, and I just pray with all of my heart and my soul and my might, God, please. And they got a heartbeat, and he's breathing. Like Lazarus from the grave, Jesus Christ brought my son back from the dead. But he's sick, very sick. And he had suffered severe brain damage. We're talking complete deafness, complete blindness, severe brain damage, severe cerebral palsy, severe epilepsy. We were in the NICU for almost a month. And in the first week, they asked us 4 or 5 times how we wanted to say goodbye to our son. You know, and I can remember thinking, I didn't ask God for my son to be some incredible athlete or pro fighter or football player or whatever. I asked that he have the relationship with God from day one that it took me 26 years of life to find. And that's exactly what he got. You know, it was right after that I started seminary school, and right after that I started fighting again. You know, I knew that Cooper was gonna have a hard life. I needed to focus on my physical health if I wanted to, like, be the kind of dad that I wanted to be. So I walk into Great Life Performance Center. I asked Damon Reed, one of the true greatest boxers in Kansas history. And I asked him if he'll be my coach, and he's like, no. Well, I told him Cooper's story. The more that, you know, I kept coming to his classes, and I kept coming here, and I kept working, and he saw my drive, and he saw my work ethic. And before you know it, we're training twice a day together. Man, there's nothing better than having a good coach in life. Damon and I have been on a 9-0 run. I am now the Kansas, Missouri, and the American Boxing Organization heavyweight boxing champion. My son, who was never supposed to walk or talk or hear or see or do anything, is a running, singing, who loves boat rides and truck rides and scooter rides. He loves going to school, and he's just the happiest little kid in the world. And he's our little mini worship leader. He stands at the front of our church during worship with his little hands raised up, just praising God and singing. You know, Cooper's first words weren't words, they were a song. That's his love language. When I had gotten to the point where I had nowhere to turn and we were in crisis, my wife and I were in crisis, we had Vallejo. We had a place that we could go that with people that were trained and knew what to do and knew how to respond to this and knew how to de-escalate the crisis that was happening in our lives, right? And listen. So much of it is listening. It's not telling me what I need to do. It's hearing what is actually going on and what my actual problems are. Vallejo did that, right? Vallejo has that ability. Whatever problem you have, there is somebody there that cares and that is willing to take the time and go through the effort of figuring out how to get your feet back on the ground and moving in the right direction. And I am eternally grateful to Vallejo. I've started my 4th year of seminary. I will graduate from seminary hopefully in December this year. Now I have the opportunity to stand on the other side of that and help people who are going through the same struggles with mental health that I experienced. Who I was and what I did and what I went through, how does that happen? Only God. Only God can make that kind of a change in somebody. And it's just been an incredible journey. Amen.